Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today was in a pickle, but she didn't relish in it. She dilled with it, and it's making pickles that matter, which makes her a big deal. Please welcome the owner of Liv's Gourmet Pickles, Sain. What's going on, Liv?
Thank you. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with me during a lunch break. I always love to ask the question, what's your go-to lunch or sandwich?
Ooh, my go-to lunch or sandwich?
Yeah, either or, because obviously I'm the sandwich guy, but I do eat other foods, so I tell people I don't ever, we're not strictly on sandwich. A lot of my guests tend to go sandwich, but I'm open.
I try to eat healthy, so I make a lot of my salads myself. But the funny thing is I will only eat a sandwich for lunch. I will not eat it for dinner.
Okay.
I'm very picky and weird about that. I only eat certain foods at certain hours of the day. But yeah, my favorite sandwich, I always go for Publix sub. It's my go-to.
So, and and obviously I'm all about small businesses plugging their product as well. So let's go with, so when you have a Publix sub, is there a particular pickle, Liv's Gourmet pickle, that you actually put onto the sub, or maybe cut up and then put over the sub or whatnot?
Yeah, I'm a pickle snob now, so I refuse to eat anybody else's pickle. I won't. I will put my Liv's Gourmet dill pickle on a sub. And a lot of the times when I'm at markets, I'm always gravitate towards hot dogs. So I always get a plain hot dog and I always put my pickles on the hot dog.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Do you use your habanero one of your habanero pickles on it, or no?
I actually hate spice. I make spicy pickles, but I don't like spice. I just go for the sweet pickle or the classic dill.
Okay. I love that. So I mentioned in the intro, obviously, that you were in a pickle. Can you tell people how you started Liv's Gourmet Pickles 3 years ago?
I can. So how I started the business and when I started making pickles are actually two different stories. I have been sober for 2.5 years. And prior to getting sober, I was making pickles just for fun. I had food allergies. I had a lot of crazy symptoms that we didn't know what was causing it. And it turned out to be food allergies. So I started making my own food. No preservatives. I had to do gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free. So I just made cucumbers, pickles for fun. And I had a bunch of cucumbers in the fridge, English cucumbers. Started making pickles. And I posted one picture on Facebook. And I just said, love making pickles. Wasn't trying to sell, wasn't trying to do anything. And I sold 40 quarts of pickles that week. And the funny thing is, I love cooking. So I was really into the food styling. So I would post pictures of me taking my time, food styling, and everyone wanted the pickles. It was kind of funny. I never got hired for my actual food. It was the pickles that people really gravitated towards. So I sold the 40 quarts and I'm like, okay, there's something to pickles here. But before I could even consider pursuing the pickle idea, I had to go to detox for alcohol. So I had been in and out of detox twice in my life. It's something I struggled with for over a decade. And I went to detox and came out of it, had way too much time on my hands, which is not good when you're trying to stay sober. So I was like, what can I do? I have no job. I have all this time on my hands. I'm trying to stay sober. What the heck do I do with my life? And I could never find my passion. I loved cooking, I loved music, but I never found my place in the world until I made pickles. So I came out of the detox. I was like, you know what? I got nothing to lose at this point. Let's just start a pickle business. I had never done it before. I never had a business. I didn't know what I was doing. I kind of just learned as I went. And I did my first market within 30 days. I got my business license. I got my food permit. I got my insurance. I did everything that I was supposed to be protected. I did my first market. And I wanted to think bigger than markets, just doing it a couple times. So I was like, you know what? How can I go bigger than markets? So within 1 year, I had gotten my product into about 6 hotels. And that's kind of where I'm at now is 3 years later, I'm still in business, still doing very well. And my market is I'm in hotels. I do weekly markets and I'm doing really well with my business.
I love this. What I also love and I appreciate, your brand is sober made, charity driven. So you're
Hmm.
making pickles that matter. You also do a charity that you support. So like where did that component come from? And then how do you select the charity that you're going to support?
So I do it a couple times a year.
Okay.
So I choose a couple different charities a couple times a year, and a portion of those proceeds will go towards that charity. I seem to always do it more towards the holidays. How I started doing that was really how I was raised. My dad always taught me to give back. Growing up, we always went to Salvation Army on Thanksgiving and gave out stuffed animals. And I actually rekindled that because my dad passed in 2012. So after that, I rekindled that idea and just started every year giving out stuffed animals. So giving back was always something I was exposed to. It was how I was raised. It was something taught to me. It's a way to just feel like you're doing purposeful work, something meaningful. And it just tied into my story. I makes me feel good. It's like service work, which is a big part of recovery, is service. How do you help others? So, and how I choose my charities, it's really just what's close to my heart. Like To Write Love in Her Arms is my favorite organization because it's connected to my story. It talks about the suicide and the addictions, and that's close to my heart. And I try to choose charities like that, but I also choose charities like Second Harvest, which has nothing to do with my story, but it's also feeding people, and I sell pickles. So it still kind of connects to
Yeah,
me.
I love that. But one of the things I wanted to bring up was, so you do your first market, you do everything like how you're supposed to do. Like how many did you come initially when you first did your first market to now
Yeah.
where you are now? How many are you offering now when you do a market?
Yeah. So I started out with one. It was dill, the most traditional, most
That's it.
common pickle flavor, most popular flavor purchased. And I started with the dill. And I actually started out doing 1 inch thick pickles. I didn't even start out with the chips. I was so stubborn in the beginning that I was like, I refuse to be like anyone else. I wanted to be so unique that I did 1 inch thick cut pickles because a lot of people had the spears, they had the chips, and I was like, I gotta stand out. It's so competitive. So I did that, but a lot of people started requesting chips, and then I started changing the chips. But as far as flavors, it took me a while to incorporate another one. The second flavor I did the next year was sweet jalapeno, and I was very slow introducing new flavors because I was all about just let's just see if it's going well. Why would I change it? I
Yeah.
had that mentality: is don't change it. You're doing well. But now at markets, I sell my top three, which are the dill, the sweet jalapeno, and the sweet tropical heat, which is sweet jalapeno with pineapple. So I try to
Yes.
come up with flavors you cannot buy, you cannot find. If you can't find it, create it. That's kind of my mentality. And now I have 11 flavors on my website.
Awesome. So all 11 flavors are available when you pop up, correct?
They are because I actually offer, you can pre order and you can choose that location, and I bring that flavor. And of course, I don't bring all of them because that's a lot of product. So they can easily go online and purchase it, and I bring it to that
Yeah,
market.
I love that. What do you think makes Liv's gourmet pickles different from other pickles out there? Because I know you cold pack them and you use fresh ingredients, but what do you think sets you apart?
I think it's my story. Me, Liv, you can't duplicate a Liv. It's my brand, it's my story, it's why I started. As far as the product, it's definitely, I use English cucumbers, which most pickle brands do not use that because it is more expensive. And my pickles are premium. People know that. And fresh ingredients, no preservatives, gluten free. What you see in the bag is what you get. And I just rebranded my sticker, so it's all tattoo skull themed, and now it just feels more like me because I'm tatted up and I'm a little more like a rebel. So I feel
Yeah,
like now my pickles and my brand match my personality.
I love that. Yeah, and they're all cold packed, which is also great.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. You mentioned, and I know we had talked about it, but I wanted to kind of bring up the importance of. I know you started with the Conway Community Market, and
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the importance of markets like this to be able to do, because obviously this gave you an opportunity to come up with an idea. Obviously you did everything that you needed, like legally, to kind of be able to sell
Hmm.
food, but you came up with an idea to kind of be able to test it out. And I wanted to bring up the idea of that aspect of like you when you first tried to do it, the importance of having these type of markets to be able to kind of
Hmm.
what is, I guess, your ideas and kind
Yeah,
of go from there.
it is because markets is it's not easy being consistent. It's not easy getting a following, but it is one of the fastest ways to get out there. and to test the market. And that is why I started doing markets, was to test my product. And the funny thing is, when I first started my first market, I knew after that market that there was something to the pickles, because it was the worst day. It was rainy, it was cold, it was windy. It was my first market, and I could have looked at it as, this is not meant to be. This is a sign that I shouldn't have a pickle business. But people still came out with their umbrellas, holding their umbrellas with it pouring rain, waiting for pickles. And the funny thing is, at my first market, I sold 30 jars and no one tried the pickles. It was just the story behind the pickle. So that's kind of how I started. And Conway was my first market that I ever did. And to this day, I still do. I still do Conway. But that was just a true test of, damn, people are even willing to stand out in the rain for
Yeah.
pickles. And I
Yeah.
didn't give samples then. I sold it based on presentation. And that was another thing that was different. I was stubborn. I refused to give samples because it's like, well, you can't test a steak at a steakhouse. You can't really test a whole lot when you're at the grocery store. So why is this any different? But that was a learning process for me. And now I give samples, and I normally sell out at my markets because of the samples. And it's so important.
In speaking of that stubborn, I wanted to kind of trickle back to the idea of the pickle chips. What finally was it? Just so many people telling you? Because I know, like for me, sometimes like everyone has a great idea. Everyone probably also, what about this one? And you're like, yeah.
Right.
And there's some cases. Don't get me wrong. I'll write down some of them. I'll be like, oh, this is may not
Right.
this may have something. Let's write it down. But I mean, where did, like, at what point did you finally give into the process of going, okay, fine, I'll make chips?
You know what it was? It was one of the hotel accounts requested chips. And aside from some customers saying, do you offer chips? It was the hotel account. I was doing so many chips that I got an electric slicer to help me because I was producing so many pickles that I was using the mandolin. That was getting tiring after a
Yeah.
while. So then I finally found this electric slicer that was exactly able to cut the size that I wanted. And I'm like, this is so much easier. This has made my life so much easier. If only I could just offer chips. And I'm like, wait, I can. It's my business. Why don't I just do that? And now I only offer the chips, and it is the top seller. So it's, the inch was sold to hotels for presentation, but customers, they want it easy. They want convenience. They want it fast. They want it ready to eat. So I just do
Yeah.
chips to make it easy.
I was very fascinated as I was reading about you. Where did the idea of hotels come from? Where you're like, I want to do hotels. Like that kind of, like, I was like, wow. I'm like, that is great. And it's funny because I always talk to my wife as I'm researching people and talking.
Yeah.
And I told her, and she goes, that's a great idea. She's like, that's a great idea. I was like, I know. I was like, I want to know how, like, what triggered you to be like, because I love, one, that you gave yourself the goal,
Yeah.
to be able to do it. Like, hey, I want to do this. But I
Right.
was very intrigued by the aspect of what was the thing that you said? Because it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to be in like shops or, food boutiques
Yeah.
or whatever. It was like, I want to be in hotels.
Yeah, I have. My thinking came from my dad for sure. My dad had the think big, think bigger. It can get a little annoying at times because it's like, when is it enough? But it's good because I always have another goal in mind. Growing up, my dad was in the hospitality industry, so I was really exposed to that. I worked in hotels, so I saw how high volume it was. So for me, it was just thinking big, just thinking bigger than markets. Where can I take this? And that's where hotels came into play.
That's really cool. I love the fact of that. Not to give trade secrets, but I am kind of curious. Well, I'm assuming maybe a basket or some form of pickles showed up and being like, hey, I'm interested. And you kind of do you want to sample my pickle, type of thing, like chips, to kind of let them know. I'm assuming that kind of went into it when you were trying to, like, especially you were trying to get into shops and stores.
Yeah, a lot of cold calls, cold emails. And, it was just those couple people that responded, gave me a chance, loved the story. And it's funny because the one hotel account I did land, I walked into it because I was so used to rejection. I was like, oh, this is such a waste of time. They're not going to want it. I was already preparing myself for a disappointment. And it was that opportunity that came through that I still have to this day. So it's one of those things where you just never know when you're going to get that yes. You get so many no's before you get a yes. So
Totally
I
get
just
that.
can't give up. Just got to keep going till that miracle happens.
Exactly. I want to know a little bit more about. There's a saying that you say often is, once a pickle, never a cucumber. And I know,
Yes.
I kind of want to learn, I'm kind of curious on the journey, obviously the journeys of being sober and a journey of a business, or I'm kind of curious if there is some form of parallels to some of these things that you go through, but I know it's a journey, and it's never an easy journey either way. So I want to know a little bit about some of the lessons that you've learned about yourself, but also kind of like things that you may have seen that kind of are similar to someone having to battle, addiction, sobriety, and then also at the same time having that difficult life of being, an entrepreneur and being, a business owner.
Shit. That's a very good question.
Thanks.
I have to really, God, I got to think about that
You
because
can think about it.
I need to think because recently I have been doing writing, a lot of writing.
I've noticed
And
very deep writing, by the way.
yes,
Yes.
very deep. I don't know what I want to do with it. If I want to turn it into videos or a book one day or even like a speaking platform. I don't
Yeah.
know. But I've noticed there are a lot of parallels. Everything I go through in recovery is very similar to what I go through in business. It's like such a big question. So I'm trying to like really
No,
narrow it
that's okay.
down of like what I've learned. So like for example, one of the lessons in recovery, it's the same as business. It's either grow or go backwards. So that was another thing was the growth is I put in recovery. I've learned that when you stop growing, you risk relapse. The same goes for my pickle business. If I stop creating and improving, I'll get stuck. And that's why I keep learning, experimenting, and bringing new flavors to the table. Growth keeps me alive, both in sobriety and in pickles. So that's one of the examples of like the parallel of recovery and my business.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that I did right. And the other thing that I wrote was protect what makes you different. Real quick, in the early days of my business, one of the biggest challenges wasn't just making the product, it was selling it. My pickles were fresh, crisp, and full of flavor, but they weren't shelf stable. They had to be refrigerated, and not every business had the space or the willingness to accommodate that. I can still remember people telling me you should change your product, you should change your vision, you should make it shelf stable, and you should make it cold. So, in other words, you should make it more convenient for us. And if it means compromising your vision, there are moments I question myself. I thought maybe they were right. Maybe I should change it. Maybe the way I'm doing this is too hard. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't just selling a product, I was selling quality, I was selling authenticity. And if I changed it to fit someone else's idea of convenience, it wouldn't be mine anymore. So, those are two examples of the connection of recovery and business for me. I have more ideas like that.
I love it. I saw those as I was reading through in my wonderful investigations, and I was like, man, I'm like, these are I jokingly even said, I was like, man, I'm like, she is deep. I was like, she is deep. So no, so I think it's great that you and I can see that in the sense of, obviously I see it, and obviously the way I've always seen it is like it is a journey in whatever you do. So that's kind of how I knew that there was going to be some, similarities or some aspects of it, because you're going to have the bumps on the road, and you're going to have those those decisions and those forks on the roads that you're going to have to make a decision on. And things like that. And like you said, it's always interesting when you do something different and everyone kind of then goes, well, why do you do it that way? Like, why don't you do it this way? Everyone else is doing it this way.
Exactly.
That's always like the battle of like, you're like, no. And then you're kind of, your convictions are, no, this is how it's supposed to be. This is how I see it. This is how it is.
Exactly. And I'm a rebel at heart. So I am the type that I have to be different. I have to be unique. And it's a typical alcoholic mentality. We do think we're unique people, but my business has to be in order to stand out.
Yeah.
And I just refuse to follow. I'm just more of the leader. I'm more of come up with the ideas. Another idea too is more than a label, like that applies to business and recovery, is your product is more than the label. You could have this great label, but the product could be crap. So
exactly.
And like me, I'm more than an alcoholic. So another example of parallels.
No, I totally get that. Since you mentioned tattoos, I have to ask, pickle tattoo? Do you have pickle tattoos?
It's funny. That's one of the tattoos I want to get, but I have yet to get it.
Because it probably means a lot to you, and it's trying to figure out like what exactly, and I don't know if that's what it is. I'm assuming that might be the case, right? Like what exactly do you want it to be or how it be?
Exactly. And that's it. It's how a pickle, 'cause it's got to be my brand. And I don't want to be cheap looking. I don't just want like a little pickle emoji or a pickle slice. Like it's got
Yeah.
to be deep and meaningful, which is what all my tattoos are.
Yeah.
Every tattoo has a story.
Yeah. Do you who knows, now that you've rebranded, maybe it's maybe it is a skull or your name, your name on it. I know for me
I think so.
that could be the case. I know for me what I ended up doing was I ended up doing my mascot, my little Biggie bread with the bag. That's what I got a tattoo of because that is my alter ego. I am Biggie, he's
Yeah.
Biggie bread. So I kind of thought
Yeah.
like that would be the way to go. So I've been doing this thing on my podcast recently that I actually love, and I wish I would have done it from the very beginning. But especially since I talk to so many people that I love, like I love what they're doing, but I also know that sometimes, and I don't think that you suffer from this, but sometimes people don't put things out into the universe of what they want to do or accomplish.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I want you to be able to talk into the universe, and I want
Yeah.
you to give me,
I
what
love
do you
that.
want to put into the universe for Liv's Gourmet Pickles? Let's
I
put it
love
out there.
that. That's such a great idea because I'm a big believer in manifestation.
Yeah.
And putting it out there. So my dream is actually in 2026. My dream is to have pickle vending machines all over Orlando. So my dream in 2026 is to at least have one vending machine in one high foot traffic area. And a bigger dream, yeah, it would be nice in City Walk or like a Disney Springs. That's thinking really big, but
Yeah.
hey, why not?
Throw it out there.
Yeah. And because I don't want the whole storefront, I don't want the brick and mortar. I've seen a lot of people do that. It's a lot of work. It's a big financial risk. It requires a big team. I'm trying to think simple. I'm trying to think more into the future. And vending machines are very popular. And it's something that I can do that people could go onto an app and it could be like locate your crunch. And they can find the closest vending machine to Liv's Gourmet Pickles. And it would be nice. Like, as much as I love markets, I don't know if I would ever get away from it, but it would be nice to eventually be able to grow and have the vending machines as like my little storefront. So
Yeah.
I didn't have to do markets. And that way people don't have to wait for me I have to go to the next market. Because I do have people that reach out and are like, when are you at your next market? And they either order online or they wait to go to that market. So just be a more convenient way for people to access the pickles. But that's my dream.
I love it. I love it. And I wanted to make sure that people heard that because I saw that and I was like, I saw that and I saw the thing of wanting to be like at a city walk or something like that, which I
Yeah.
think is high traffic areas. It makes sense. Good crunch. You
Right.
got the hydration. Wanted to talk about, I'm always curious since obviously you're a pickle person.
Right.
Can you give me some? I'm always kind of curious on if you have any pickle facts or anything like that that people may not be aware of that I
Yeah.
think you can kind of enlighten them.
20 billion pickles are eaten every year. And
Which
that is when I did my research. That's when I knew, okay, there's enough pickle lovers in the world to keep me in business. So yeah.
For sure. And I mean, to think it goes back to Cleopatra, and Cleopatra says that she claimed that that's what gave her her beauty was
How
pickle juice
funny.
and
Hey, there
pickles.
you go.
Yeah.
I love
It
it.
goes back all the way down to like Mesopotamia is like what it is. And then I don't know if you know this, but I love a good I just love like silly facts. Supposedly in a pickle was inspired by or started by William Shakespeare.
Interesting.
in
I
a
did
pickle.
not know that.
Yeah, I did some pickle facts. I was like curious on pickles, so I was curious. I was just like,
That's
so
awesome.
I just did like top 10 pickle, popular or famous pickle facts, and that one was
I
caught
love
my
that.
eye was the Shakespeare one in a pickle because I was
Yeah.
like, who would have thought? Obviously, he said it in a totally different way than in a pickle, but it was that's kind of where it came from, the idea for it, which I think is great.
That is so cool. I
Yeah.
did not know that.
Yeah, definitely something. What advice would you have for someone wanting to start something?
Stick to your vision. Don't listen to others unless, of course, it is, good advice. I mean, there's certain things that I would hear. I'm like, what? But there's certain things that you hear that you need to put your ego aside and not be so stubborn like what I did with the whole samples and everything and changing my size of pickles, but I didn't change my vision. That's something that I stayed true to myself. And when I first started, there were people that laughed. Oh, a pickle business. I still get people nowadays who are like, you still make money doing that? Well, yeah, what else would I be doing? It's not a hobby, but stick to your vision, stay true to who you are, and don't let anyone compromise those values. And consistency. Consistency is very important because it is so easy to want to give up. It is so easy to get discouraged by the amount of no's, by the rejection. But if I would have listened to others, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't be sober. But yeah, don't give up before the miracle happens. That's like that's my mentality
I like that.
in sobriety and in business.
Yeah. Yeah. And also consistency, and obviously, especially in your world, consistency in product is
Exactly.
a huge one. You know,
Yeah.
it's very easy to, as you grow, to kind of taper off and go a little cheaper or do a little thing different. And
Exactly.
and that's always a tough one where people don't understand and don't grasp it. And sometimes, and I don't know, sometimes, and you tell me if you feel this way sometimes, like sometimes you do the extra things because you want, because if you feel it, because that's like, this is what my brand is. This is what my vision is. This is what it's supposed to be. And people will question and sometimes be like, well, why do you do it that way? You could just do it so much cheaper or so much easier this way. And all the extra work and effort, but you do it because there are some people that do appreciate it. Not that you maybe do it for those people, but you do it because it keeps with your vision of what you're trying to do.
It's true. And that's why I stand out. And that's why I get the reaction I do from people. And that's why I have the customer base that I have, because I've been consistent in my quality. I refuse to change the quality. If anything, I am just upgrading things. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. On the flip side, what advice do you have for someone wanting to stop or needing to seek help? Like if they're in a bad situation and they kind of need to, you know, what advice would you give them for like, hey, I want to stop doing this. I need to be able to kind of take those steps to get in a better path.
So for me, because that's the only thing that I can speak on.
Yeah.
Is what helped me get sober was finally having enough of my own behavior. And I had tried many times, but it's when you finally have enough. It's when you look at your behavior as unacceptable. You can't change for others. It never works. It might help, you know, it might inspire or get things going, but it does not last. And I think it's important too for people who love an addict. They're never going to change for you. They're going to change for themselves. And for me, it was finally having enough, finally being tired of the pain, because I felt like the only way to happiness was my own funeral. Many times I thought the only way to peace was to rest in peace. But that was a very unrealistic way of thinking. It wasn't that I wanted to die. It's that I just didn't want to live in the pain anymore. And the only way to get out of that pain is I went into recovery. Number one, I was honest. I was honest to the people that I trusted. I confided in people about my drinking. That's one of the many reasons why I'm transparent. So I am extremely transparent of my recovery on my socials, in my business, at markets. And I think that's what helps me stay sober is the transparency, because it protects me from being invited out. It protects me from being exposed to that lifestyle, to those people who are not getting help, who need to. It hopefully inspires others to want to get sober, and it keeps me clean because I'm putting it out there. I can't talk about and preach the sober life and then they see me at a bar next weekend. Like, it just doesn't work that way. Yeah. For me, it's integrity. Yeah. So I'm all about being honest about who I am and what I do, even behind closed doors. So my advice would be find that one person that you can confide in. I do believe in AA. I'm not as active as most people. It's a resource for me. So what helps me stay sober is the things I do on a daily basis, is my business, being spiritual, and never wanting to go backwards, which goes back to that question you asked. What does that mean? Once a pickle, never a cucumber. It's because I never want to go backwards. I never want to go back to being the cucumber. I want to just keep moving forward, because if I go back, I will lose it all. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. And it's not worth it to me anymore. And what helps me today is being in a healthy, happy relationship, having friends who support me, family who supports me, and just being extremely protective of my surroundings. And which is what I said earlier, protect what makes you different. I'm protecting myself.
I love that. Where can people follow you? Where can they enjoy your pickles and get some merch?
Sounds good. So you can find me livesgourmetpickles.com. I accept all orders online, local pickup, local delivery, and then I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook under Lives Gourmet Pickles, and that's where I post all the events that I'm going to be at, and I always bring my merch with me along with the pickles.
I love that. Liv, I truly appreciate it. I know we've been following each other for a while, and I'm glad we got a chance to finally see each other in person in real life, and then also actually
Me too.
get to actually do this. So I really appreciate you taking the time for it. I think a lot of people will appreciate this. I was very excited when I saw a few months ago when I saw a few things, a few articles and a few things pop up about you. I know you've won some foodie awards for best vegan, vegan snacks and vegan foods and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
just think it's great. I'm excited. I'm excited to see pickle vending machines maybe 2026 and beyond. I think you got something there. So I definitely I'm looking forward to seeing that iteration and that happening for you. So I'm super excited.
Thank you so
You're
much.
very, very welcome. That's our show for today. Thank you so much to Liv for being on, from Liv's Gourmet Pickles for being on and having lunch with me during my lunch break. Make sure to check them out online. If you see them at a market, definitely sample, buy some pickles. Pickle juice, folks, great for hydration. And with all those special flavors and how it's nicely cold packed, it's going to be delicious for you. So definitely make sure to enjoy that. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to tell your friends. If you see a guest or hear a guest that you think inspires you or could inspire someone else, share that guest, because everyone's got a story that everyone can listen to, and maybe that story is the one that's going to get you to actually do something that you're excited to do and inspire you. If you want to support my brand, check out Deli Fresh Threads and do some shopping and tell your friends on that. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thank you so much, everyone.